Imsa heads north to the land of poutine, maple syrup, and beaver tails. Yes, those are a real thing, and they're delicious. I actually think you can get one at the race if you're gonna be there. I'm getting sidetracked here. It's not the food that we're here to talk about, it's the 5 storylines that you need to be watching for in this year's Chevrolet Grand Prix. For the first time since 2018, when they were part of the top class in Imsa, the LMP2s will be the headlining class of an Imsa race weekend. Yes, this upcoming race at CTMP will feature a bit of a different look, as the GTPs won't be present, but the LMP2s will. This stems from a scheduling decision to not have Imsa's top class make the trip north of the border for at least the first time since the merger. Now, of course, this obviously created a group of unhappy Canadians that were hoping to see these incredible cars make a trip north of the border again. And look, I won't lie, with this being my home race, I really was hoping that the GTP cars would be making the trip. The racing that they've put on this season has been phenomenal, and all 4 of the full-time manufacturers have had a realistic shot of winning a race. And heck, even the virtually brand new Lamborghini looked competitive at Watkins Glen. But it is good to have some unique races thrown on the schedule, and having the LMP2's headline certainly gives us a unique thing to follow in this race. Are people upset? Sure, but we will still have a weekend full of phenomenal racing at CTMP, and the LMP2s can put on one heck of a show. These cars are only going to lap around 2 seconds slower than what the GTPs lapped here last year, so you're hardly going to notice a pace difference. And look, the point here is that this is the LMP2 class's time to shine. They deserve it. There are some phenomenal drivers racing in that class, and those are still some really cool cars. I just hope the narrative coming out of this weekend is not, oh, the GTP cars were absent, but rather it's talking about the incredible racing that the LMP2s put on for us. Okay, let's take a breather. I may have got a little bit heated there. But let's focus on something that isn't going to be absent for this round, and that's a bunch of the GTP drivers. Yes, even though the GTP class won't be there this weekend, we're going to see a bunch of familiar names filling in LMP2 rides. We'll see Renger Vendezander in the number 8 Tower Motorsports entry. Felipe Albuquerque will fill in the 22 United Autosports entry. Pipo Derani is in the 88 AF Corsa car. And Luis Delatraz will compete in Spike for AO Racing. Also add in that the 18 era Motorsports car will feature Stuart Wiltshire as their bronze driver. So with that, you have quite a few driver moves to get familiar with ahead of this race. Now, why are 4 full-time GTP drivers making the trip north to CTMP? Well, you see, there's a conflict with the World Endurance Championship Sao Paulo round and IMSA's round at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. This has also led to some additional drivers needing to be sourced in the GTD ranks. There, Mario Farnbacher will fill in the number 23 Heart of Racing GTD Pro Aston Martin. Meanwhile, in the other Heart of Racing entry, the number 27, Zach Robichon is competing in the WEC round, so Spencer Pumpelly has been brought in for all of the Sprint Cup rounds. Regardless though, even though these GTP class cars won't be present, there are a number of GTP drivers that are still going to be present on the grid. As has been the case in recent years, IMSA has boasted a strong group of Canadian drivers and teams. This weekend, they're going to be battling it out across all of the support series, as well as the 3 classes in the WeatherTech Championship, which will feature at least 7 Canadian drivers. John Ferrano will be in the number 8 Tower Motorsports entry, Parker Thompson in the number 12 Vassar Sullivan Lexus, Ore Fadani in the number 13 AWA Corvette, Romain DeAngelis in the number 27 Heart of Racing Aston Martin, Michael Grenier in the number 32 Korthoff Preston Motorsports Mercedes, Kyle Marcelli in the number 45 Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Lamborghini, and Misha Goiberg in the number 78 Forte Racing Lamborghini. In addition to that, the number 43 Andretti Porsche also has a Canadian flag listed on it beside a TBA driver lineup, so we could even see a potential 8th driver on the WeatherTech Championship grid. All of this is to not even mention the Canadian teams that will be there, Pfaff Motorsports and AWA. I also recently learned via their X account that Tower Motorsports is also apparently based in Toronto. You can't forget about Multimatic, who runs the Ford GTD Pro entries. They have a large number of employees in the Greater Toronto area. And this is all just in the WeatherTech Championship race. There are also local drivers that are going to be competing in the Michelin Pilot Challenge. Justin DiBenedetto and Travis Hill will compete with local team Tooth Autosport in the GS class. They'll be fighting against the likes of Thomas Collingwood, Daniel Morad, and Jesse Lazar in that class. Meanwhile, in TCR, you're going to have the number 6 Montreal Motorsports Group Honda featuring LP Montour and John Brell. Robert Wickens is in the 33 Brian Herta Autosports Hyundai. There's a father-son duo of Dean and Sam Baker. There's Denny DuPont in the number 76 Hyundai. Carl Whitmer in the number 93 Montreal Motorsports Group Honda. And Mark Wilkins in the number 98 Brian Herta Autosports Hyundai. Don't worry, there's more. In the VP Sports Car Challenge, there's Jonathan Woolridge and George Stakos in the LMP3 class, with Jesse Lazar and Jack Polito competing in the GSX class. I do want to point out that Jack Polito might be a sneaky pick here in GSX. He's competed at CTMP in the FEL Sports Car Championship, which runs GT4 machinery, a number of times and has been very successful. He knows his way around this track very well, and I think he'll be a threat in his series debut. And finally, in the MX5 Cup, there's just one Canadian on the grid there, and it's Jonathan Neudorf. Look, if there's anything that you can take away from this list of drivers and teams I just gave you, it's just to keep a very close eye on this group. Now, every track that we visit is someone's home race, but when you're racing in the only race that takes place in your home country, these drivers are going to be just a little bit extra motivated to get to the top step of that podium. One of the great battles that I think we'll see unfold this weekend is in the GTD Pro class. The championship hunt is heating up, and after Rexy at the 6 Hours of the Glen had a bit of a subpar performance based on what we've seen from them, we see the championship hunt tighten right up. To recap, Rexy leads with 1,632 points. They are now just 49 points ahead of the number 14 Vassar Sullivan Lexus, and 60 points ahead of the Watkins Glen winners, the 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. Not to be ruled out just yet, though, are the 1 Paul Miller Racing BMW, who are 209 points behind, and the number 9 Pfaff Motorsports McLaren, who are starting to heat up, but they're 238 points back. So basically what we have here are the top 3 are locked in a very close battle, nose to tail, while the other class competitors are trying to claw their way back into the championship hunt. In this class, you also have the hometown Pfaff team looking for their first win with McLaren. Ford sure would love to visit Victory Lane with a bunch of Multimatic employees present. And what about those Corvettes? They had a win slip through their hands at Watkins Glen, and you gotta think that they're pretty motivated to back up their win they got at CTMP last year. Oh, and what would a win do for any of those 3 cars I just mentioned? Well, it would bring them squarely back into the championship hunt. There's going to be so many storylines to keep an eye on in this class, and it's going to be an absolute treat to watch. At this point, it's anyone's game who will come out on top, and see who we'll be talking about as a serious championship threat heading into Road America. There has been a ton of chatter around the Imsa silly season in recent weeks. I mean, I know I'm sure guilty of talking about it a ton, but it has certainly been for good reason, with a constant stream of news coming out of particularly the GTP class for next year. Acura has finally confirmed their plans for next year, as Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti will end their 4-year relationship with Acura. And replacing them is a team that's done plenty of winning with them, as Meyershank Racing will once again team up. They'll maintain both of the ARX-06 entries, but they will split race engineering duties of one car with Honda Racing Corporation, or HRC. This isn't the only silly season news, as Pipo Derani was also announced as leaving Action Express Racing after this year. And Cadillac still has a bunch of questions lingering over their head as to who will run those entries, after Chip Ganassi Racing has been announced that they won't be running them in IMSA or the WEC. And in all this chaos, where on earth is Rodney going to be racing? Well, lucky for you, I cut through all the chaos and I put together this video to catch you all up. A huge shout out to all of the channel supporters. If you too want to support the show, then you can head to patreon.com/offinthes, or click the join button below. Once again though, thanks for tuning in. I hope everyone has a great race weekend and doesn't go off in the S's.